Welcome to the podcast, Beyond Expectations, Parenting Autism. Follow Michelle Chabola's journey of raising a child with autism, the challenges, victories, and rewards. If you're a parent, caregiver, or simply someone seeking to understand autism on a personal level, you're in the right place.
All right, here we are with Beyond Expectations, and today we have a guest with us from Indianapolis, Indiana, Derek Crager. Welcome to our show. How are you?
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Sean. Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Welcome, Derek. We're glad to have you. Michelle gave me a little bit of your background. I can't wait for you to introduce yourself to everyone who watches the podcast.
Well, Michelle just introduced me, right? Is there more? Are we done yet?
That was it. It's been nice having you.
Now officially the shortest podcast we've had. Tell us about yourself. Why are you on my show today? How's that?
Well, you'll probably be asking yourself that after we get done, Michelle. Autism is on my file now, but I'm 59 last week, and I was late diagnosed, which that just means I was an adult when I was diagnosed at age 50. And so growing up, I was that odd duck. I was that square peg trying to fit in a round hole. So I spent my life in the self-help aisle of every library and bookstore. And back then we had not only books, but we had cassette tapes and VHS tapes and then CDs and DVDs. And I mean, you name it, it's out there. And since then, now we have podcasts and audio books and all kinds of cool stuff. But I looking back, I learned in my life that if humans have the right information at the right time, they can make the right decision. But my brain doesn't always connect at the same level that to pick up that social context. So the first 40, 50 years of my life were trying to fit in, trying to adapt myself. And then at age 50, I was diagnosed, and I cried for about 2 weeks. Aww. I mean, literally, good tears, happy tears, regretful tears. Well, why couldn't I find this out earlier? Because us humans like to be categorized. It's not so much we want to be different. We want to stand out, but we don't want to stand out. But we want to be categories, but we don't want anybody to put us in a category or pigeonhole us, and that type of thought train. But what it does when we are categorized, it's just like going to a physical medical doctor. If you have a cold and it's diagnosed, well, then you can treat it. And to be diagnosed as autistic, ADHD, and dyslexic at age 50, it allowed me to, one, forgive myself for a lot of my, youthful exuberance and lack of traction and all those other euphemisms that we throw around, trying to deflect responsibility and hurt and emotion. So once I embraced my difference, this neurodiversity we call it now, I seem to excel, and it's my life has really changed since then.
That is fascinating. Michelle, had you heard of a diagnosis being this late before?
I don't think so, but I know of certain people or people that were had a lot of more sensory, Derek, things. They'd be like, how come this bothers me, that bothers me? And they would go ahead and research about it and say, well, you know what? Maybe this is what I've got going on. But a full-blown diagnosis, not this late. I can't imagine what he went through as probably as a child. I mean, fill us in. I mean, how was it? It had to be difficult. I mean, this was great. Sean, this is when you and I were in school, right?
Yeah. Although Derek and I are almost the same age. So yeah, this is the vintage of people who, it came before the prevalence of the diagnosis. So
what's the usual response here, kids, when you ask that question? I had the greatest life ever.
Yeah. Right.
Well, right. Some yes, and right. Some maybe not so much. It's
well, I tell you what, I don't pity myself. I think that just because we're diagnosed, we're categorized with this, Even today, children that are diagnosed autistic, ADHD, I really don't think they should be babied. I think I benefited from not being cradled, protected. I was exposed to some hard truths, that's for sure. And now that I'm on this side of the diagnosis, I'm able to connect all the dots. I've been keeping track of these dots for quite some time. Now I'm really able to connect all the dots. And I thank both of you for having shows like this to allow people to share their stories and inquire, because if we just help one person, you know, I mean, that's
it.
That's what we measure success by. If we can just help one person, and we can help them by, sharing our experience, because it's a lot tougher and it takes a lot longer to learn walking your own path than it does to, hear stories from others and say, oh, you know what? I do that same thing. What did they do? Oh, I'm going to try that.
Right.
And it's fantastic.
Maybe, I guess what's going through my mind is do you have a specific example of, like, I'm fascinated by this before and after moment. Like, so, you're a completely grown man, you're successful, like life is not terrible, right? And then you get a diagnosis. How did it change? What did it change? And what factors manifested themselves into something like a diagnosis?
The decade before, so in my 40s, I started picking up hints and seeing patterns. And so I started hanging around groups online and saying, hey, asking myself these questions, what am I doing? Let me do this research. And that's the cool part. Online came around with this internet thing, and we were able to connect to databases and other people, different communities. And I love the fact that many of these communities, you don't have to show your card and say, hey, I'm a card carrying, ADHD or autistic. It's just, come on in. And so I was a fly on the wall. I listened. It took me probably 2 or 3 years before I'd throw a comment out, maybe once a month, and say, hey, I did this too, or did you ever do this? Or that's what that means. Just simple stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was a slow ramp up until my diagnosis. So what was key for me, Sean, Michelle, is that I was working at Amazon, the big Amazon.com company. Mm-hmm. And I was on their reliability, which is engineering and maintenance, and which has been my bread and butter most of my life is the industrial trades. And I got this diagnosis about 6 months in. And what's wild is 3 months in, because I lacked this context to connect with people, 3 months into my time with Amazon, I was nearly fired over a conversation that somebody took out of context. Now, I must have took it out of context. Somebody else took it out of context. But what really happened was 2 people, I think, me and another person, were really connecting. And a new employee for Amazon came in, the supervisor level, and just overheard part of our conversation. And there was nothing crazy about it. We connected so quickly and so closely on our first day. We were sharing some heartfelt truths. Mm-hmm. And so I nearly got fired 3 months in. But then you go 3 months later, I get my diagnosis, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to embrace this. At Amazon, they call it having a superpower. What is your superpower? So, let's do the whole turn lemons into lemonade thing. Compliments of my time at the self-help aisle. And so on my corporate email, I put at the bottom, kind of like a tagline underneath my signature or part of my signature. And it said, hey, I'm autistic, ADHD, dyslexic. If we're not connecting, or if a message doesn't connect with you, just, hey, reach out. Let's just work through this, because I'm, a little bit different. And so 2 things. One, I think it allowed me to remove that chip off my shoulder, because when people look at you differently, when people look at me differently, we want to put up this barricade, this barrier, this shield, because we know how it goes. We've been hurt so many times when conversations go wrong. So we're looking to cancel out the other person as soon as we can. Mm-hmm. So when I shared my diagnosis, publicly, right on every email that ever went out, and it said what I am and what I'm diagnosed as, and just, hey, let's talk through it. It switched a switch in me, and I think it really helped others. Said, oh, I can just imagine that we've never really talked through it, but in my head, I kind of played this out. Oh, that's why Derek's weird, or that's why I consider Derek weird. And
Derek, what is it in your mind, like in your words? What is it that would make you weird, like in quote unquote weird? Like what's different about how you would interact with people than someone that isn't diagnosed?
Taking things literally. Everything, to many autistics, we take things literally because we lack the subtext, the understanding of subtext. So when you're in a group and somebody asks a question and I respond literally and it's not on topic, they look at me like I'm different, I'm weird, and my mind always goes to exponential layering on, well, if it happened here, what if it happened 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times? Right. Again, by the time I was 50, I just got to the point. Go ahead, sorry.
But you learned, like you taught yourself, you recognized this before as something to work on, and you tackled it.
Yeah, and the way I tackled that is like a computer. And like in the last few years, this AI thing came around, and they're talking about prompt engineering. Have you ever heard that term? And prompt engineering is, well, they put it this way: if you can ask AI the right question in the right way with all the food groups, so to speak, if you ask the right question in the right way, you're going to get the right answer. And that's what prompt engineering is about. And when I first heard that and I'm looking through this, I'm thinking, oh my God, every A out there is autistic. Whether it be Claude or ChatGPT, they're autistic because they respond in a literal manner.
It becomes specificity is required.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of assumptions that people have about things I never picked up on. So when somebody asks me the right question the right way, I answer like I'm a genius. They think I'm a genius. But my time, at least up until age 50, I would prepare 2 or 3 responses because I learned by this time that there's a disconnect. And it's using different word choices. The words are associative, but they're different word choices that maybe aren't accepted in different groups, different connectors. And so I would answer a question and they would look at me like this. I would immediately go to position 2, using the same answer but with different words, and then answer 3 if need be. So like a human thesaurus here, I would go through and have all these answers prepped. So that caused me to respond slowly because I'm not thinking of one answer, I'm thinking of 3.
Right. Wow. That's fascinating. So part of our show is for Michelle to share her experience with Gregory. And hopefully, as you said, if we can help one person, be amazing. And we focus on that parent that just got the diagnosis and the kind of, the panic that we went through. If you were knowing what you know now, if you had a child, if you had it doesn't matter the age, I guess, and that this is this point of subtlety, nuance, inference, is an issue. Is there anything that you would point a parent to help train on this?
Well, I would, and I can share example from my own life because although none of my 4 children have ever been diagnosed neurodiverse in any manner, neurodivergent, I think is the correct terminology. I know my youngest, my middle 2 for sure, but my youngest, there was a time when he wouldn't even talk to his best friend's dad at a soccer game when we were on the sidelines watching Big Brother or Big Sister. And he was just quiet. And I remember me, quiet and shy. There's those throwback, when I was in school, I didn't say 2 words. And to me, I probably didn't say many more than that back when I was a kid. So I understood this because I walked that path. So for my son, I think the recommendation would be is don't protect them. put them in positions where they can learn for themselves, but just make sure you're supportive. And for autistics, there's a lot of, it might be the hub to the autistic wheel. This isn't science that I've found, but for me,
You know what? You're
is
after, so that's fantastic.
yeah. Yeah. So if you put your child in a situation where they have to think on their own, but then you're supportive of them, put them in positions where they can talk and communicate in a safe environment. And I started out simple things like driving to the gas station, and I would send my son in by himself to, ask a question or grab a pop or chips or water or something. Or, here's a $20 bill, take them in and pay. And I always remember my son would look up at me like with these eyes like, are you crazy? That scares the crap out of me. But I would just look with assurance like, hey, it's an everyday thing. This is what we do. Just go do it. And he would go and he'd come back. He'd go and he'd come back. And right now, my youngest, we're proud of all our kids for different reasons. I can go on a story for each one of them. But this topic specifically, my youngest, who wouldn't speak to people when he was younger, he grew up. He's now, what is he? I think 20. Well, my God, is he 26 this year? In October. And he's been very successful on his own. He has friends. He has groups of friends online, offline. All my kids have groups of friends, and that's something that I never had. And so just to summarize an answer for your question, put them in positions where they can practice looking stupid, but without that vulnerability of someone accusing them of being stupid, and just assure them that, hey, it's everyday life. We're all different. It's all perspective. It's just words.
Wow, that's got to be hard to do.
It is. I do that with Gregory. I don't do the cash thing because he's been quick change so many times, which is sad. There's a special place for those people. But he does have a bank card, and he does go in, and he has to talk to the people. And it's a hard thing for him, even at 31. It's very hard. But he does it.
And the difficulty in communications is Derek, from being misunderstood or feeling like you're not fully understanding what the other person is saying or thinking? Or is it just that you're taking in more information than everyone else that you get overwhelmed?
Well, I think both of those are applicable, Sean. Smart people look stupid if they take time to respond. Dumb people look smart when they respond right away, with confidence, right? So, and, there's a saying that says, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So all these play into, let me respond with the right information at the right time, and at the granular level too. So if somebody asks a question, I go right into, I'm counting the grains of sand one by one. And the question might be, can that, four-wheel drive go across that field?
Right.
Well, if this and if that and this something else, and there's people that are like that, and you can probably think of your own scenario, and the audience can probably think their own scenario. There's somebody in your life, probably multiple somebodies in your life, where you just want a yes or no question, and they start going into detail. Right. And for autistics who have been accused of providing the wrong answers, not being in alignment, we go overboard on our answers because we want to supply all the information, kind of like a shotgun technique. Right. We want to give every answer A to Z because we don't want to leave anything out and be accused of holding something back. We feel that, whether we've ever been accused of that. And so when we're droning on, and it comes off as a drone, we're telling stories when somebody just wants a yes or no answer. And that's that really is, that's part of being able to ask questions in the right manner, put them in the right context. And for me, on the receiving end, that happens to me if I ask a question and I'm looking for a yes, no, and somebody goes into, well, if this and if that and if something else, and it could rain, it may not rain. We've got, bigger tires or smaller tires, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. And my mind is just like, okay, I'm like a computer process, and I'm stuck here at this fork in the road. Yes or no? I need a yes or a no before I can comprehend anything else that you're saying. And so it's kind of like the reverse. I need the context first. Are we going left or right, up or down, before I can understand any of the other information? And it's kind of ironic, but many autistics will go through on this information dump before giving that yes or no. So I've learned this through the self-help aisle, that if we respond with the right information at the right time, it helps the conversation go along. And I remember remember this thing called newspapers? It was like these big pieces of paper with a little typewriter print all over it.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, there were a couple sisters, Dear Abby and Ann Landers, and I used to read their context all the time. And one of the questions was, "Hey, I'm walking by somebody, and you say, 'Hi, how you doing?' They don't really want to know how I'm doing." Right? Because if I start telling them, they're like, "Oh God, I got to get out of here. Somebody pull me off with a hook."
Right.
And that's a contextual thing right there. I think, and I wish I did, was it Ann Landers or Dear Abby, one of the two, said, "Hey, it's just a form of saying hello. They really don't want to know how you're doing. And if you're doing bad, don't say you're doing bad.
Really
Just say, hey, I'm good. How about you?"
Right.
It's just part of the situation. Now, if you get into a one-on-one conversation with somebody that goes beyond, the common stuff, yeah, you can get into it. But that's an example right there of where autistics take things literally down to the granular level and respond as such. And that's why a lot of times people want to get away from me or us. Yeah, hey, I don't want to be pulled into this conversation again.
Right. No, I mean, I think we can all relate to having that person in your life that is gonna tell you, as they say in my world, you ask them what time it is, they tell you how the watch is made, right? Yeah. And it's an art. Like, I suffer from this a difficulty in condensing my thoughts. I struggle with it a lot, and I think a lot of people do. So it's relatively common, but you've conquered it, right? I mean, you're doing great today. Did preparing for this take a lot of work?
It has taken a lot of work, and it stays. I need to remind myself. I do remind myself in the morning when I wake up, before I go into a meeting with somebody, before I start a conversation, before I answer the phone. I personally don't answer my phone because I don't know what to expect, so I don't go down that path. I've got another answer to your question on guidance.
Sure.
And there's a very good friend of mine. We hated each other. We met at Amazon, and if he's listening, he goes, "Yeah, that's me." But we were working with each other, and what we found out is that, and I don't know if he's ever been diagnosed officially, but we know he is. He's, yep, that's me. When somebody asks an autistic a question or get in the conversation, generally, from my experience, I'm speaking, we want to talk about ourselves, not because we're full of ourselves, but because we want to share with the other person that says, "Hey, I'm like you. I bungee jumped too, and I did this, and the sky was blue, and the plane was green, and I went with my best friend Jimmy," and it comes off as being full of oneself, when for autistics it's really about, I'm just throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, because, Sean, I want to connect with you so much. I really do, because I think human connection is the most important thing in the world, and I don't have any connections out there. So if we go back to real life, well, I'll say Philip. Yeah, I won't give his last name. How many Philips are there?
There's a lot of Philips in the world.
Yeah, Philip, who I'm talking to. But we got in this conversation, and we had to work with each other. So we were our hand was forced. And it got to be the point where I just was patient, and I conversed with him, and, without raising voice, without, that trigger emotion or triggering his emotions, and trying to keep my emotions in check at the same time. I said, "Hey, when you connect to somebody, ask them about their day, and just sit on your hands. Close your mouth and sit on your hands. Don't move. Look them in the eye and listen. And then again, self-help aisle 101. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should be speaking half as much as we listen. Inversely, we should listen twice as much as we speak. And when we do that, people like to hear themselves talk. And if I'm talking the entire conversation, Sean, Michelle, you want to get out of the conversation. But if I ask you how you are and let you talk, and that's why we ask about the weather. How was your day? Because it may lead into something else.
Right.
And Philip and I working with each other, we got to a point, and it was neat because what we taught at Amazon was a lot of Amazon stuff, but it was centered around leadership development, change management, conflict resolution, those sorts of things. And day 1 on our 2-week course in person was always get to know ourselves and get to know each other before we spoke anything about Amazon. So this conversation with Philip was, hey, if you want to connect with somebody, Philip, just speak less. And he comes back like a week later and he says, I did it. I did. I sat there and listened, and they stayed around. It was the longest conversation I had. And so Philip, he's a fantastic guy. He lives over on the East Coast, and I just drove out there last month just to visit him. Him and I stay in touch. We're best friends now.
Was it the Amazon HR process that manifested the diagnosis?
It was my time at, I don't know what the trigger is. Amazon, because there's 1.5 million employees, has a lot of after school groups, not after school, but,
Right.
outside the normal realm.
Right.
So there's lots of support in these groups. Some of them are official Amazon support groups. And, you get on, like Slack or, Google Chat or something like that. They had their own internal chat that they used, but there was conventions, there was online communities, and we just supported each other.
I see.
So that's where a lot of it helped. It wasn't HR directed. HR wants to be responsible for anything, but it's best that they just try to give the infrastructure and let people support themselves. That's why, and I'm going to tell you this, because it's part of an answer. It's the complement of the answer to what happened once I admitted and shared with the world who I am. I built Amazon's highest rated employee training program in company history.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And it came down to understanding ourselves and understanding each other, that we're different, and having the patience to keep our mouths shut and our ears open. It's simple stuff. It's really what all leadership development is just to listen. But I taught that, and I built a program out of it, and gave each employee an easy handhold so they could implement it within their own locations.
That's putting your superpower to work, right?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
That's that high level of empathy that we talk about that Gregory has. Like, he can really detect how you're feeling. And I feel bad for him sometimes because he takes on, if you're not having a great day, he seems to take it on himself. He's worried about it. You can tell. He can totally sense how you're feeling. That's unbelievable. And so it's kind of fun though, because for us, and we had another guest that is an adult with autism, and it's like, I think for the parents watching or listening, we hope it's a chance to kind of speak to their child in the future, right? It's a chance to say, because this can be very difficult, right? To get information out of a child. And so like, the more you can tell us about like what you like, is there any part of you that says, hey guys, like this was all going on and no one was waving a flag? Like, what are those things that happened that you sort of think people maybe should have caught on to help you sooner?
You got to have patience. For me, growing up, my personal experience, I didn't have a prayer. I'm one generation removed from Kentucky Hill people, and looking back now, on my dad's side of the family, there is a higher than average autism rate, and also a higher than average suicide rate. There's lots of suicides on my dad's side, and I think it all comes. We've talked about it internally before. We feel pressure because we can't fit in, And without connection to resources to say, hey, I'm different because, and maybe I could fit in with this. It's kind of like trying to run an engine without engine oil. You know, mechanically, it's built right, but it lacks that lubrication to let it flow. So
You're saying that taking that on, you start to be, you're critical of yourself, right? It works on your self-esteem.
Correct. We're critical of ourselves because we have that experience many times in public, or it feels like public, where we say something that is taken wrong. You know what? That's the wrong word. When we say something that is taken out of context to our intent. And that's part of what I would taught at Amazon. Intent versus impact. Derek, your intent may have been to, share the winning lottery numbers, but the impact was, hey, you're too stupid to figure out what the winning lottery numbers are. And that disconnect is what drives a wedge between people. So if we're patient with ourselves, if we're patient with those around us, because by the time children are, even 3 or 4 years old, they're talking. And many times if they say something and mom or dad or grandma and grandpa or aunts and uncles say, oh, you can't do that, or don't say that, or that's stupid. It's like we're throwing salt in the wound. And so the reflex action is to cover up. So we'll just go get along. Yes. Okay. We'll become yes children just to get by because we don't want to feel stressed out. And stress is around us all day long, 24/7. And we don't want any more stress by being taken out of context. So there should be guidelines, there should be boundaries, there should be consequences for all children is my belief. But at the same time, we should all be aware that, hey, our child is acting differently because of this. Or if I don't know why my child is acting differently, they may or may not be autistic. The term neurodiversity or neurodivergent was coined, I think, in the late 90s. And what that is, it's an umbrella of all the differences that separate us. And it's a shame because we consider things separately. How can I push that person away instead of bonding with what we like? So bond with your children by finding something that they like, ask them, and be quiet. It might take an hour, it might take a day, it might take a month. But find out what they like and do something with them. And it's a reward mechanism. Reward them for sharing their vulnerabilities. And because the sooner they can speak their voice, the better off they're going to be, the better off you and your family are going to be, and the sooner their internal development can start. Take down the walls and give them a chance to access all these cool tools and education that we have available today.
Wow.
That is incredible advice. Absolutely fascinating. And I think that I didn't fully understand, like, mentally the before and after. So is it that after you were diagnosed, you could just be less hard on yourself? Like you could give yourself grace to say that it's okay that I am different? Did you take the pressure off yourself? Is that one of the big differences?
That's a big part of it. Yeah, that is a big part of it. It's similar to being 5 foot tall and trying every day to dunk a basketball. Right. Okay, one person out of a million might be able to,
right? But
we keep beating our head against the wall trying to do something that's out of our reach. So yes, it's okay to grab a ladder and climb up the ladder and then dunk the basketball so I can experience dunking the basketball. Right. If the goal is dunking the basketball, let's build the bridge to get there. And the same way for neurodivergence. It's an invisible, we get away from the term handicap and we really don't like the term disability, but it's a difference. It's just understanding that there's differences between us all. And if you go into any type of personality assessment, and it's an assessment, we say, not a test, but a personality assessment, nearly everyone out there is some sort of, let's split it down the middle and then split it again. So there's these 4 common corners. And then within each of those, we can divide those into 2 or 4.
Right.
And it's basic math.
Right.
And if we allow ourselves to use the tools. Once I was categorized, I know I could go grab a ladder. Before that, I just kept trying to dunk the ball on my own and living with failure. And that's the difference.
You gave yourself the chance to accept help, to find help, accept help, and know that it's okay. That if you're as different is not bad.
It is. And Michelle and I were talking pre-call, Sean, and we got into trades, industrial trades, electricians, pipe fitters, plumbers, mechanics, millwright. I mean, you name it. There's all these trades out there. And if a plumber with plumbing tools went to work on an electrical box, they don't have the right tools.
Right.
Does that make that person any less smart or intelligent?
Right.
I'd say no.
Right.
And when we come into handling those loved ones around us that are neurodivergent, it's all about finding the tools. And the tools could be calendars on the wall. It could be reminders on our cell phone, which I use both. It could be this AI thing came about and we can throw projects into AI. And I throw projects into AI and it keeps track of details for me because my mind goes from topic to topic to topic. And that might fall in more to the ADHD side of things, but it's just the way my brain works. Identify what tools work, try everything out there. We were talking a little bit pre-show about medication. I don't believe medication should be first right out of the gate. Are there medications out there that have helped people? Absolutely. Honestly, even after I was diagnosed, I didn't jump on any medication until I took part in communities where I heard real life examples of other people that are autistic, ADHD, and really the medications a lot of times we talk about more, or the public knows more about for ADHD versus autism. Autism, there's really no medication for autism. And it's my belief that autism isn't bad to begin with. It's just our mind works in a different pattern, kind of like metric versus, the traditional imperial system. It just works differently. And it's just understanding. It really comes down to understanding and applying the right tools.
That is absolutely fascinating. Well, you're doing a great job now. This is really, really unbelievably well presented. Fantastic.
So glad you reached out to us. This was fun.
Yeah, so bad. So tell us what humanfirstai.net is. I see that on your...
Yeah, absolutely. So I told you about early on, I found out that looking backwards, that having the right information at the right time, humans can do anything. They really can. So Human First AI is a third choice. That fork in the road of is AI going to replace humans? And a lot of businesses out there are trying to replace humans with AI, and that's not the right way to go about it. I think AI is a tool that we will all adopt and adapt within the next 20 years. There's lots of people on both sides of the fence. It's a polarizing subject. So I'm not going to tell anybody they're right or wrong for what their thoughts are. But if we look at the truth, the same thing was said about the internet. I don't need no darn internet. And it really took about 17 years from 1989 when the internet was introduced to 2006 when it really became adopted worldwide for the common, normal quote unquote person. So Human First AI is leveraging AI for all the good it can do and putting it in the hands of humans. But we keep humans in the cockpit, in the control seat here. We don't want AI thinking for the humans. And my company, Practical AI, our AI works with the humans. So it sounds boards. Just like you and I are having a conversation now, Human First AI doesn't just supply the answer. It talks through in soundboards, just like a subject matter expert would be. If you're looking to try something new, you get that expert on the line. Maybe it's Bob Ross teaching you how to paint.
Right.
And you just ask questions like they're a friend in the room.
Oh,
And that's what Human First AI is. There's 6 things that humans will always do better than computers and AI. But AI has a spot because it can recall information. It can talk us off the ledge. It can talk us through problems and help us identify perspectives that we block out on our own.
That's amazing. Fantastic.
So cool.
It has been great to meet you. I hope we get you back.
I look forward to it.
This is nice. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you all. And thank your listeners here. You're doing a great thing with this show. Please keep it up.
Oh, thank you. Excellent.
All right.
Until next time.
All right.